Michel crouched low, his back pressed against the rough bark of a giant fig tree. His heart pounded a frantic rhythm against his ribs. The humid air hung heavy, thick with the stench of decay and the cloying sweetness of unknown blossoms. He dared not breathe too deeply. Danger lurked in the shadows of the Rwandan jungle, whispering on the wind that rustled the dense foliage. He clutched his rifle, his fingers slick with sweat. This was not how it was supposed to be. He had enlisted to serve his country, the Democratic Republic of Congo, with honor and courage. He had believed in his mission, trusted his superiors. Now he was just another pawn in a deadly game, abandoned and left to die in this green hell. His mind raced, replaying the events of the past few hours. The briefing, the airdrop, the chilling realization that they were not on a routine reconnaissance mission. They were walking into a trap, betrayed by their own command. The faces of his comrades, etched with fear and confusion, flashed before his eyes. Betrayal. The word echoed in his mind, a bitter taste rising in his throat. He had nowhere to go, no one to trust. He was alone, hunted and afraid. Michel recalled the day he received his orders. The crisp military briefing room, the air thick with anticipation. His commanding officer, Colonel Kabila, a man whose stern demeanor and gruff voice commanded respect and fear in equal measure, had outlined their mission. "We are sending you on a critical reconnaissance mission across the border into Rwanda," the colonel had announced, his gaze sweeping across the assembled soldiers. "Intelligence reports indicate a buildup of rebel forces. Your task is to gather information, observe their movements and report back." It was a dangerous assignment, but Michel was eager to prove himself. He was young, patriotic and deeply committed to serving his country. He had listened intently, memorizing every detail of the mission, every contour line on the map. The mission had seemed straightforward enough, a routine reconnaissance operation. But as their small squad had parachuted into the heart of the Rwandan jungle, a knot of unease had begun to tighten in Michel's stomach. The terrain was wrong, unfamiliar. The radio crackled with static. Their attempts to contact the base met with an eerie silence. Doubt had morphed into full-blown terror when they stumbled upon the first signs of the ambush. Empty shell casings, discarded backpacks, the unmistakable coppery scent of blood lingering in the air. It was then that the chilling truth had slammed into him with the force of a physical blow. They were not on a reconnaissance mission. They were bait, sacrificial lambs offered up to appease some unknown enemy, some political maneuvering he was too insignificant to comprehend. The ambush was swift and brutal, a sudden eruption of gunfire, the air ripped apart by the staccato bark of automatic weapons, the deafening explosions of grenades. The jungle floor erupted in a maelstrom of flying leaves, splintered branches, and plumes of red earth. Michel hit the ground, his senses overwhelmed by the cacophony of war. He scrambled for cover behind a tangle of roots, his heart pounding against his ribs like a drum. He could hear the screams of his comrades, the desperate cries for help cut short by the chilling silence of death. Fear, raw and primal, pulsed through his veins. He watched in horror as his friends and comrades were cut down, their bodies riddled with bullets, their lifeblood staining the green foliage crimson. The ambush was merciless, a whirlwind of death that left no room for mercy or surrender. He caught a fleeting glimpse of Sergeant Mbele, his closest friend in the unit, his eyes wide with terror, his body jerking as bullets ripped through him. Michel cried out, a wordless howl of anguish and despair, but his voice was swallowed by the din of battle. Then, as quickly as it had begun, the firing stopped. An eerie silence descended upon the battlefield, broken only by the moans of the wounded and the chirping of insects, oblivious to the carnage around them. Michel lay still, his body trembling with fear and adrenaline. He listened intently, but the jungle was eerily quiet. The attackers were gone, leaving behind a scene of utter devastation. The air was thick with the smell of gunpowder and blood. He cautiously peeked over his makeshift barricade, his heart sinking at the sight that greeted him. The bodies of his comrades lay scattered around him, their faces contorted in pain and terror. There were no signs of life, only the gruesome tableau of death. He was alone. Surrounded by the bodies of his fallen brothers, he was the only one left alive. A wave of nausea washed over him, and he retched, his stomach empty. He knew he couldn't stay here. The attackers could return at any moment. With a heavy heart, he crawled out from his hiding place. He moved cautiously, his eyes scanning the jungle for any sign of movement. He had to get out of there, had to put as much distance between himself and the ambush site as possible. His survival instincts kicked in. He had to keep moving, had to stay one step ahead of his pursuers. He didn't know where he was going, but any direction was better than staying put. He pushed through the dense undergrowth, his uniform torn, his body scratched and bleeding. Hunger gnawed at his stomach and thirst parched his throat, but fear kept him going, fueled his every step. He was alone, hunted but not broken.